In a moment, we're going to be speaking to a lady called Anna Golden. She is a big fish in the live events world. Anna's the head of production for UK for AEG. Now, AEG, if you don't know them, are the guys that do things like British Summertime in Hyde Park, which is sadly been postponed this year. They also produce a huge number of tours. They run venues. They're a massive organisation. I really respect these guys. They're one of the real corporates in our sector that lead the way. And Anna is the perfect person to have. Now, rather than talking about production and techie stuff, she's going to talk about one of the softer issues right now, which is absolutely critical to our industry, and that is mental health in live events. Earlier on, Dave Gray said that events is the 5th most stressful job in the world. We know there's a lot of mental health issues in our society right now. One of the biggest killers of young people, especially men, is suicide. This is one of the big, if not the big topic of the moment, and I'm so grateful that we've got Anna here to talk to us about it. So let's hear from Anna, and after that we're going to do a Q&A session with her. So over to Anna.
Hi everyone, I'm Anna Golden, Head of Production at AEG Presents. Thank you very much for having me. I'm going to talk on a broad level about mental health in the live music sector. It's an issue which has affected the music industry for many years, but only recently, since the taboos surrounding mental health are finally being broken down, are people now starting to talk about the issues and recognise the seriousness of the effects that this has on people. I don't claim to be a mental health expert, and I'm not a trained psychotherapist. I am, however, very interested in this area and aware of currently what's being done in the music industry. We now see examples starting to be set by artists and production managers, but it's still early days. So let's have a look. As some of you will be aware, being on the road is not easy. It can be a lot of fun, but it's not a conducive environment for a healthy, balanced lifestyle. We work long, unsociable hours. We can suffer with lack of sleep, poor diet, poor boundaries between social and work life, a lack of proper quality communication with friends and family, or struggle to have meaningful relationships outside of work. All these factors can contribute to physical and mental health issues. You have to be very regimented on the road if you want to achieve any sort of balance in your life, and it's not always possible due to the strains and the pressures that we're under. In recent years, people have started looking at an integrated mind and body approach to mental health and how factors like sleep and diet can be major contributing factors to developing mental health issues. Some of these things may be obvious, but let's just quickly run through them. Okay, so looking at sleep, it's widely recognised and proven that we need 6 to 8 hours of good quality sleep per night. When we were on tour, it's not likely to be the case due to the nature of the load-ins, the load-outs, and the ever-increasing size of productions that require us to be marking out even earlier each day. Plus, on top of back-to-back shows and very packed schedules, we're not giving ourselves much of a chance. If we have a bad night's sleep here and there, it won't affect us, but continuous lack of sleep leads to fatigue and a sleep debt. After several sleepless nights, mental effects can become more serious. Your brain can fog, it will make it difficult to concentrate, make decisions, you'll start to feel down, and you can put yourself at the risk of injury and accidents at work. As I'm sure we've all experienced a single night of bad sleep, and that can make you very irritable and moody the next day. So not surprising that chronic sleep debt can lead to long-term mood disorders like depression and anxiety. Fatigue also puts you at risk of serious physical mental conditions, including obesity, heart disease, and diabetes. So recovering from sleep debt takes several weeks. We can't just bounce back after one good night's sleep. It actually takes much longer for the body to recover, which we know will be an issue if you're on long tours. Sometimes the culture on the road can be unhelpful as well. You know, crew members can brag about the lack of sleep and wear that as a badge of honour, but you can bet the person that stayed up all night and had 3 hours sleep is probably not the best at their job the next day. And as I say, this is not applicable to everybody on the road, but these are some of the concerns that people have and will suffer with while on the road. Another area to consider is diet. It's putting the right fuel in our body to allow us to sustain these long days and difficult work. We have very packed days on the road. This can lead to bad food choices being made, skipping meals, overeating, not allowing ourselves proper time to eat, using quick fix calories or energy drinks. The caterers on the road do an amazing job, but sometimes too good, given that the ever-expanding waistline you can come back with after these things. There's a growing body of evidence indicating that nutrition plays an important role in the prevention, development and management of diagnosed mental health problems, including depression, anxiety, schizophrenia, ADHD and dementia. So those quick fix calories that we grab on the run can cause blood sugar crashes, make us feel lethargic. We can even forget to stay hydrated, and even mild dehydration can cause cognitive impairment. The availability of alcohol and potentially drugs while on the road can be an issue, and it's not a factor that affects everybody, but some people could be led down the wrong path. Maybe cultural aspects of being on the road, like Roadie Friday, encourage that atmosphere. And, at the end of a very long day, why not have a beer to wind down? But this could end up getting out of control for some people. As we're all aware, our industry is very fast-paced and time-sensitive. We do everything we can to make sure the show is ready for doors. It can be stressful, and the industry, as a majority, is made up of freelance workers. Freelancers are only as good as their last job, so we can end up putting a lot of pressure on ourselves. We don't have HR departments to fall back on. And if the touring production is looking out for you, that's great. But there are jobs that fall outside of this, outside of the touring team, which means that freelancers have to be very aware and responsible for themselves. In the States, the crew is organised, for example, in unions, and that regulates hours of pay and breaks during work and any other concerns and issues that might crop up. We don't have this in the UK on the rock and roll side of the industry, and it's something that is sometimes seen in theatres. Not allowing ourselves real time off to recover from illness. And as we're very much aware in the current climate with COVID-19, if you're not working, you're not earning. So you can see why freelancers might jump from one long tour to the next, not allowing themselves any time to convalesce or recover, or maybe make up from that sleep debt that we mentioned earlier. Relationships, they can be one of the key points that one of the big building blocks in our life that helps us be stable. Busy work schedules and long hours don't lend themselves to keeping in regular contact with friends, family and loved ones. It can result in relationship breakdowns, and when the tour is over, it can be quite a shock to the system going back to reality, and where people have moved on or you're not in the same circles anymore. Tour blues can kick in immediately after a tour. Loneliness, lack of planning maybe while on the road can mean that there's no savings in place, or maybe no pension. So seeing a way off the road in the future can maybe not be an option for many people. It's a very sad reality that in the professional touring world, it's likely that you've been exposed to someone who's committed suicide. It's a very real issue that we have. So the reason that we need to raise awareness and break down these taboos, it's so serious, because these are people's lives that are taken into our hands. Also, an understanding of looking after your mental health, well-being, and knowing how to preempt and respond to unique challenges on the road, it's critical to sustaining a working music industry. So, what are we doing to help combat it? Sorry, Jordan, not quite sure why your email's popped up on there. So, here are some great charities that have popped up over the last few years, which are helping to raise awareness and give support to the music industry. Everyone from artists, managers, agents, and promoters, they're all looking and discussing to see what measures we can put in place to help assist people while on the road. So looking at a few here, we've got Music Support, which is a great UK-based charity, as is Music Mind Matters, Music Mind Matters operates 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and it's a support line and service for the whole UK music community. The Music Management Forum have produced a free online guide to mental health. The AFEM is an industry body releasing detailed advice regarding people working in electronic music. The one that I'm most excited about is the logo in the middle there, and that's the Music Industry Therapist Collective. It's a group of psychotherapists with a background in live music industry, and it's producing this best practice guide to tackling mental health issues in the business. It promises to offer guidance on how to handle psychological difficulties that arise from touring, such as loneliness, drug-induced psychosis, performance anxiety, addiction, stress, and burnout, trauma, or post-tour depression, which are all very real things. So it's great news. That is currently being funded and written. Hopes to be with us very soon. So very much looking forward to that. So in the same way that we put PPE in place for our physical protection, like custom ear molds to help defend our ears or limiting truck driver hours, the focus now needs to be on what measures we can put in place for the crew, and as individuals, how do we protect our mental well-being? So with the awareness of mental health growing, now that we see there are some artists getting on board with this, and it's great to see it coming from the top down. Lewis Capaldi has a charity that he's affiliated with, Music and You, and that offers a real 360 look at mental health support. And so it's support for concert goers while they're at his concert, whether that's a help desk or a safe space for anybody who feels overwhelmed. He's looking at putting practical measures in place to support the fans. There's also a department that can help pre-tour planning or pre-large event planning. What can we do in the build-up? What services can we offer on site to ensure that the crew that are working for us are looked after? Also, how do they then look at tour party support on the road? They'll offer suggestions, and point you in directions of where you can find counsellors or people who would be happy to have phone consultations with the crew, and what practical measures we can put in place. So this is a really great initiative that we see. Lauv is also very hot on the topic and has his own charity called the Blue Boy Foundation. So $1 from each ticket goes to this mental health charity of all the shows that he does, which he's very popular at the minute, doing arenas, so that is a lot of money going to mental health charities. He also has this My Blue Thoughts forum, which is an online platform where people can share any thoughts that are concerning them. And also he will then manifest that in a physical booth, at the events where you can go, submit any concerning thoughts, share them anonymously, and then you can take a look at what other people are saying in and around the world to see who's going through very similar things to yourself. And again, that's about breaking down taboos. It's about raising awareness. It's about people feeling open and knowing that there are options out there. Also, I've been having discussions with various production managers of high-level concerts, and here is a list of some of the initiatives that people are looking at implementing on upcoming tours. It's great that it's coming from the top down and that the artists are also on board with it. It also helps to have the budget. But not all these have to be budget dependent and are relevant, and we could apply them to even the lower level touring. Even the highest grossing tours, we don't have the luxury of double crews, someone to do the first half of the day and a different crew to do the second half of the day, which would allow us some more regularity of working hours. However, there are other things we can do to put in place. So some of the initiatives that have been discussed and are in action on the road at the minute. So if anybody feels like these are unrealistic, I would invite you to come and have discussions with these production managers and how they manage to achieve these things on the road. So first, looking at load-ins of a big arena tour, this certain production manager will do 7, 8 and 9 of the hours to load in for the first week. Once everybody's up and running and the departments are healthy and fine with their working schedule, they will move those load-in hours back to 8, 9 and 10 to promote more sleep and longer breaks between the load-out. Other people are looking at taking a therapist or a counsellor on the road. having a dedicated room backstage every day on the tour where members of the crew can check in, book in, go and have conversations with somebody, even just a general chat about how they're getting on. And again, that is a budget option, but it doesn't mean that you have to have someone every day. Maybe you have someone once a week. Maybe you have telephone support. Another production manager has put in place a work ban between 4 and 5 p.m. on show days. It's across all departments. Everybody has to adhere to it. The artist is also on board with it. This is a time for the crew to call their family, their friends, take time out, see some daylight, have a rest, and there's no judgment there. And again, I can hear people saying that wouldn't work for me, for my department, for this and that. Well, then I think it's about finding a solution and finding another hour in the day for other people who are then going to be uncontactable for that time. And if this is achievable by huge touring artists like Justin Bieber, I feel like we should all aim for a similar standard. Also, just having a decent HR policy, and a lot of production managers do this instinctively, and tour managers as well. You know, it's making sure that we are in regular contact with our heads of department, making sure that the heads of department are empowered to look out and make decisions, you know how to recognize if someone's having a bad time, know how to recognize if people aren't maybe getting enough sleep, or, you know, or struggling, or putting themselves out, potentially making themselves prone for injury. So it's having that dialogue and that communication with heads of departments, and knowing that people can come to the production manager to deal with any issues that would maybe be upsetting the cart in the wider sense of it. So these are all hot topics, all practical suggestions that people can do, and I look forward to seeing more and more of this stuff being taken on board and what other initiatives come out of this. Also, as promoters, we can look to raise awareness. So we'll be suggesting any, these benefits to tours as we go along. Also, there's charities offering mental health first aid training, which isn't exclusive to the music industry. It's relevant for everybody, but maybe every tour should look to have someone who's had this training on board. Not that that is their sole job, but as first aid training, it's just an add-on to what you could bring to the tour and offer. So that's a really good website to check out, Mental Health First Aid England. There's other great charities as well that raise awareness to people affected by mental health in the industry, which is Rethink Mental Illness Advice Line, which I think in the current state as well, that's having a lot of people use that, which is great. Maybe conversations also need to be had, especially given the current state with COVID-19, that a benevolent fund might be a benefit to set up in the same way that we put a PRS budget line down. Maybe we have to pay into a benevolent fund at every show that we have over a certain capacity. What COVID-19 has taught us is that there's no safety net for the people who keep the industry running, which is the freelancers. So why not look at incorporating a benevolent fund or something that could help support mental health within that whole thing? So there's a lot to think about. There's definitely some great initiatives out there on the road. I hope that's been useful, and I look forward to any questions.
Anna, can you hear me? I can't hear you. No, you're quiet.
Oh, sorry.
Yes, there she is. You can hear me now.
I can hear you, yeah.
Fine. So thanks, Anna. I wanted to say thank you for bringing up an issue that's so important right now. I still feel there's some taboo around this, which is diminishing fast. And you've put yourself out there in a really brave way in a big company and taken the lead on this. So thank you for doing that.
No worries, my pleasure. These things need to be spoke about. We need to get more people to make it the norm, and hopefully we can reduce suicides and other related illnesses in the industry.
And before we hit it hard with the questions on Slido, what was your, like, if you don't mind me asking, your personal motivation to make this your thing? Because production, obviously mental health is part of it, but it's not the job. What made you get into this aspect of your work so much?
I think it's a number of different things. If you've ever been to the IPM, it's a topic that comes up every year, and we never seem to have any decent answers to it. And I guess the fear is that the government will come in and impose legislation on us that won't fit the music industry. So I think we've got to be proactive in our solutions. And I think some of these aspects are quite easily solved. And I just think it really matters. You know, like as mentioned a few times today, we're seeing suicides of people on the road, and I hope that they could be avoided in the future if we can provide people with a bit of information, a bit of support, and the awareness to know that if they're having a hard time, that might be a mental health issue.
Okay, that's cool, thank you. One of the questions people are asking is how you can go about saying no to work when you're not in a good place without the stigma and also without the risk of not being asked back again. Because a lot of freelancers, if they say no, the TM just might not call them again. How can they deal with that?
It's a really difficult one, and I guess it's part and parcel of being a freelancer when you make that decision to go freelance. I myself have been freelance as well. And it's about knowing your own boundaries and putting in place rules that work for you. So, you know, again, it's that awareness of, have you saved enough money while you've been on the road? What would work for you when you're on the road in terms of like putting stuff aside, so if you come back from this tour and you need a break, you've got something to fall back on and you haven't sort of spent your money having a great time, which is very tempting and very easy to do on the road. But I guess if there's a cultural change on the road, you might be less able to go out and spend your money in that way. You know, I think over the last 10 years, everyone has seen a shift in touring mentality, and you know, from the stage of like loading lagers was a thing. Now that's like, you know, health and safety's come in, thank God, and that's not an option anymore. A lot of the old dogs are sort of moving on, and that attitudes are changing. You know, it's nice to see the new generation, you know, not necessarily in the music industry, but the new generation are way more health conscious and not as big sort of drinkers and maybe drug users as there are in the other generations. So maybe it's a generational change that's coming.
Okay.
In terms of saying no, I mean, that's your boundaries, and it's, you've got to be confident in your relationships, and you've got to be confident to know that there is enough work out there. And if you're good at what you do and you get on with people, you will get hired again. It's just, you know, being the best you can be. And if actually being the best you can be is part and parcel of, you know, giving yourself a better mental place on the road, then that will, you know, people won't forget you. People will remember, like, a good worker's a good worker, and then they're difficult to come by, like really difficult people who are talented, you know, good people person. You know, it's not just the one skill fits all now. You've got to be part of the team and play the game. So if you've got good relationships, you should be fine. And I think, being honest, I think people like that, and I think the trust element is really important too.
Okay, so in a way, what you're saying is that to be in a position where you can say no to work, it's about your investment before that, making sure you've got money in the bank, making sure your relationships are stable enough that you can be open with someone, and also being good enough that, frankly, they're going to want you, even if you do say you can't do it because you're that damn good, they want you on the next gig, right?
Yeah, or maybe you say, I need to take some time out for the first X many shows, I can join you in a week, are you all right with that? See if people are up for compromises. Someone might prefer to have a fully fresh worker rather than someone who's, you know, rinsed themselves on the last tour and then has to roll straight on the next one and they're absolutely shattered. So, you know, there's these conversations to be had now.
Sure. So it's not about necessarily just dealing with the crisis. It's also about investing in yourself leading up to that point to mitigate that risk later on.
100%. And maybe people will be able to bounce back quicker from tours if they can deal with a lot of that stuff while they're on the road. And it's not everybody's affected by this. You know, it's definitely not, you know, people can go and do this for years and years and years, but not everybody can. And it's about catching those people.
Okay, someone else has raised a really good question, which is very relevant in my world of corporate work and touring as well, and arena shows, of working long hours and being tired. How you as a production person would like people to deal with the fact they're maybe too tired to work, how they broach that subject when there is the risk of the show at stake by not working a long shift. How do they deal with that? How as we as producers and production companies deal with that?
I think it's got to come from the top down, and it's got to come from a good, strong production manager. And like I said, the example before, there's one production manager who does a very, very big arena tour, so very packed back to back. And for the first week, they'll do load-ins 7, 8, 9, and they'll limit the amount of trucks that they've got on the road, and they won't jeopardize the show within that, and the show production. And then it's on about, like, once everyone knows what they're doing, it's moving those load-ins back an hour to make that difference, to add that extra hour on, or ask for time in the day. If you know you've got a time where your department is quiet, make sure your head of department or your production manager knows that you're going to be off comms for a bit, and you just go and find a place to rest. We're always going to have long hours and long days, and it's just about how we can make ourselves the best that we can possibly be and well rested in between that. And I think that I feel like it's all wrapped up in the same thing. If we can, for instance, the bus is full of beers, and you get on the bus, and then it's a beer, and then you go to bed at this time, and then you get up at that time. Like, if that culture shifts because it starts from the top down, and the emphasis is more on, like, let's look after ourselves, let's have a beer while we're in the venue, but when we get on the bus, let's not have any alcohol on there, and it's just about knowing your crew as a production manager, knowing that who you hire, when you hire them, that they're great at their job, but they're also on board with the ethos of the tour. So if you're saying, like, this tour, this is our angle, this is our aim, we're all like a big team, we aim to be healthy, we want to come out of this the best we can possibly be so we can maintain our workload and go on, then hopefully people will buy into that ethos. And then if not, I think if they've been made aware of it from the start, and a production manager thinks that maybe it's a bad apple and it's upsetting the dynamic, then that will be dealt with.
Okay, so it sounds like a lot of this comes back to culture and leadership from the top, setting the tone. So, for example, the tour manager should be deciding what the tone of their tour is going to be, setting by example, and refocusing people away from bad behaviours and perhaps more towards things that are better for physical and mental health, yeah?
100%. And days off, they don't need to be all about meeting in the pub and doing that. If you're trying to do a team building thing, take people to an escape room or just let them have their own day off. But, it's not all about, like, okay, let's go get smashed, let's everyone meet in the pub or whatever. But again, this is not like, I'm not saying this applies to everybody on tour, and I'm not saying, like, people on tour are complete disasters or whatever, but I just am aware that there are different characters, and there's a reason why we're all attracted to this industry, and it is a lot of fun. And, there's some great relationships you can make, like, immediately with people. It's always a very tight-knit family, but it's just making sure that everybody's got their own back.
That's cool. Okay, so it sounds like there's potential here for massive and very immediate cultural shift with tour managers and production managers. I mean, every tour that we're involved with, it's essentially a new organisation, and the cultures emerge from day one, and those tours are dissolved after a month or a year or whatever. So it's not like an old company where it takes forever to change. We're in an industry where change can happen straight away, right?
100%.
This is great. So we even could be, as an industry, an exemplar to other sectors of how fast change can be made, and we could lead the way with mental health improvements in our industry.
I think so, and there's all of those, like, initiatives you can do, like maybe just having a mental health first aider on the team somewhere. It's not a difficult qualification, and it would just be useful for everyone to have the awareness. Even if you can't afford a therapist on the road, maybe it's an employee assistance number where you can ring in and discuss any issues with a therapist over the phone, or maybe you just see if anybody needs practical help while they're on the road. And I think that's, again, about a good relationship between a production manager and the employee. And it depends how long you're on the road for. I know production managers in the past have spoke to people and said, do you need help managing your bills while you're away? Or are they going to go on a 6-month tour, come back, realise they've forgotten to pay X, Y, and Z, and their electricity's been cut off? And it's just about helping people, like, put practical measures in place if they need them. We don't need to mollycoddle people. These are all grown-ups who've chosen this profession. But if some people do need the extra help, it's having that trust there and saying, like, is there anything we can do to help you practically?
Okay, that's great. Someone's just asked as well, are you able to celebrate the production managers who are doing a really good job? For example, could you publish the production managers who have done mental health first aid training so younger or more vulnerable people in our industry know which TMs to steer their career in the direction of?
Yeah, I could try and find out for you a list of who'd be up for letting that everybody know, but yeah.
Well, I wonder, Anna, for you, given your position, which is massive in the industry, could you even encourage production managers to say when they've had this training so people gravitate more towards them? You could perhaps facilitate that change now, maybe.
Yeah, 100%. We're having conversations all the time. We see examples set by other tours, and we see a long tour that we're working on, and we'll say, hey, just so you know, these are some mental health initiatives that are being done on the road, and this is what these people are doing. Would you like us to help in any way to do that? You know, if it's encouraging a friends and family room so people can come and visit you on the road, sure. You know, in our advance, we'll just say, cool, we'll allocate a room for the friends and family to visit during these times, and we'll organise an accreditation system for that. And it's just like saying we can do that, and that can be relatively cheap. You know, that can be essentially like free.
Well, something you touched on there is the idea of friends and families essentially coming to see what people do for a job. I've actually found in my career that people who are partners or whatever of people in our industry don't really know what we do. So it's this alien, dark, mystical world where things happen. Maybe creating more links between people in the industry and their family and friends is good. A bit like how they used to be bring your kid to work day type things. Maybe that kind of thing could happen at some point in the future where you bring your loved ones or your children along and see what it is that we actually do in our work.
Yeah, I think there'll be health and safety implications around that. But I think, like,
Yeah.
you could invite your family and friends to be backstage in a special room between this hours and this hours, and if depending on the show and the layout and the venue, if it's means you could show them around, then great.
Yeah.
But maybe it just, yeah, you're right. But I think it's just more having that regular contact. Instead of seeing like, bye, see you in 6 months, it's like, hey, you're welcome to come to a show here, without any pushback from the production manager or the tour manager. And again, it's all very unique to the type of tour you're on, but I feel like that can't be a negative, you know?
That's cool, okay. One other question someone's asked as well is about the Benevolent Fund. Have you seen any artists who have put themselves forward and allocated some of the production budget to paying into this yet?
Not yet. I mean, this is just a suggestion that I've just been thinking about, like, literally over the past few weeks, and it's not, I'm sure I'm not the only person who's thought about it, but it just seems to be a shame that we run our industry on freelancers, and then some of them can still fall down the cracks when something like this happens, which none of us, when you decide to be a freelancer, nobody, you weigh up being your own boss and your own holidays and working long hours and having to say yes. But you don't ever go like, oh, there might be a pandemic. That's never on the cards in terms of deciding to be a freelancer. So, like, I just feel we rely on freelancers to run the industry. Like, we should be helping them out in some way, because the government scheme is not covering everybody, and it doesn't seem fair. Everyone's been paying taxes for a whole lot of throughout their careers, and to be now falling down the cracks just seems unfair. So I just do wonder if the Benevolent Fund would cover something like this, or if someone had personal problems, or if someone had a mental health issue and had to be off work for an extended amount of time. I have no idea how this would work. It was just a nice idea. I'm not a business economics person.
Well,
so
I think, Hannah, it's an awesome idea. And I reckon if you said, hey, Coldplay, Sam Smith, Spice Girls, whatever, would you be happy to put a percentage of your income to the Benevolent Fund? I would hope they'd say yes. And I imagine that would be a really good positive message around them as a band as well. So I really wish you all the best with the Benevolent Fund. And thank you so much for joining us today.
No worries. Thank you for having me.